In the following tape, the artist Michael Mazur works in the monotype medium. Monotype is a print medium in which ink or paint is applied directly onto a metal plate. The plate is then run through a press in the same manner as in etching. Since the plate itself is not altered, the result is a unique and spontaneous printed image.
These are studies for a commission that I'm working on that was commissioned last March by the Committee on the Visual Arts at MIT for a dormitory at 500 Memorial Drive. The space is a meeting room or a large reading room with a slightly curved wall about 44 feet. But you couldn't do like one enormous piece that would stretch the whole length because the wall is set up so that it's in wooden panels, and so it had to be a pair probably of 3 panels, 2 triptychs. And since I had been working in this particular kind of triptych or diptych format for a number of years with Monotype, it seemed logical that I would solve it with 2 large pieces. What those pieces would be, the subject matter, I didn't think about much at the time, and by the time I started to think about it, I was working out at Mashpee, Massachusetts, where I have a summer place and spend most of the summer. And even then it was really hard to think about what I wanted to do. I knew at the time that it was going to relate in some way to the work that I had done with flower imagery. But I was also concerned that something more happened, that it wasn't simply a decorative piece, that there be a relationship to time, to a particular place, something like that. Then suddenly I began to realize that the Cape for me had 2 very different kinds of experiences. It had the daytime experience, which was very full and rich and bright. The islands were very dense against the view against the lake, and the flowers were very rich in their colors. Everything was extraordinarily alive. But the night was something very different, and the night at the Cape was, as a city boy and living in a relatively urban setting, the nights in the country were very spooky, if you will. They were very different as a visual experience. A deep space, an uncluttered, a brooding, a darkness. I don't know. I don't quite know how to describe it. But these were 2 distinctly different kind of feeling states about the landscape. And so the idea of 2 triptychs, 2 prints which related to each other, and then day and night, and how the same set of formal solutions, the same kind of landscape would change from the day to the night, began to be an interest, and really became the basis of what was going to be the final images in these 2 pieces. I've been working for some time with Bob Townsend down in his print shop in Boston. We have a good working relationship. He knows pretty much what I want at any given time. Because of the scale and physical demands of the project, it would have been impossible to think of doing it without him. Yeah. On the first morning of work, I start on the night image. Bob has rolled up a plate in a fairly loose blue ink into which I paint directly the forms of the sunflowers. After I've painted the large, strong forms, there is a crucial overrolling with stickier black ink that lays onto only those parts of the plate which have not been painted. It avoids the looser ink in the flowers, but the blue still comes through and gives a glow to this new black color over the surface of the plate.
Did you project? Well, I projected too much, but that's not.
And then I did a piece which was essentially a triptych format, a monotype, over here. And I wasn't happy with it. It was something unexpected needed to happen. So one day, I had made a night image, and I didn't like the way the night image worked. So I cut out one section of night image because I wanted this section, I kind of hung it on the wall and I said, there's something I like about the way that works. So as usual, I would just put it on the wall. And then one afternoon, I'm sort of in frustration, I said, well, what would it look like if I just sort of slapped it on top of this other image? Just put it on there, you know, and let it happen, whatever is going to happen. So I put it right on the image. And I sort of was taken aback by it. Something had happened. And then it occurred to me that what I had done was to make a second level of comparison between the two diptychs, two triptychs. That within each print, not only was there a record and of the forms of the previous print, but there was also a sort of memory or a switch, day onto night, night onto day. The inset on the large monotypes will be printed at the same time instead of collaged later. I use a thin metal plate, aluminum plate, and simply superimpose it on the larger one.
Cleaned down?
No. And
rolled up in the light.
There is nothing for me more exciting than working on that metal, on the inks on that metal plate. The sound of working, the way the terps moves into it, into my material, and softens it up. The other issue is the speed of working makes you give up a certain amount of control. And I like giving up that control. It all happens immediately, quickly, and it's printed, and once it's printed, unless I go back with pastel, I don't have much. I've done it. I have to live with it. And the excitement of living with something that works out well in that kind of speed is really, it's tremendous for me. I don't know if the drying would have affected, like some of the colors dried down a little bit so they didn't come up the way, you know, like these colors dried down a little bit. We're ready to print now. It took from about 9 in the morning till midnight to finish the process of painting on the 3 plates. Normally, I would spend no more than an hour on a plate, and it's taking a chance to let the ink dry even as long as we've allowed it.
Okay, here we go.
All right.
Yeah.
You want me to hold on to it?
Yeah, tug on the side, I'll watch this side.
Okay. Oh, is that a shadow? Oh, okay,
This is from the papers. So when I rub it down, it's a little more moisture.
Pretty good. I think that there is a basic issue in painting or drawing or whatever. I mean, it's not limited to media, about memory and the function that memory plays in a work of art. I mean, when you're working from life, memory plays a role, because there is a moment, even though there's a comparison going on, one can compare the work with the real thing. In the move of the head, from looking at the thing to, in fact, looking at the work of art, there is a loss, there is a gap. And that gap is filled by memory. If you extend that gap to, let's say, going someplace, seeing something, and then coming home and drawing it, now memory plays a slightly more important role. It's become selective in a much greater way. There are things you forget and things you remember, and it's very often those things that you're remembering that are the closer to the core of the need to express yourself. But in this case, in the case of the Cape, memory played an even larger role for me, because of the particular circumstances of the place itself, a place where one goes just one time of the year, so that the rest of the year you are remembering what it was like that summer. What is the landscape like? And very often I'll find myself, my head will actually drift, my mind will drift to that place, to that view. Coming back in midwinter like this is sort of another aspect of the whole problem of remembering. Things, you know, are bare, and all the structure is there, and none of that growth and confusion. Something about the change of seasons that goes along with the change of night to day, night simplifying or obscuring, and day revealing, and summer confusing, and winter revealing again. You take a place, you make it your own, and it becomes more than real in a way. It becomes two-dimensional at the same time as it's three-dimensional. I mean, it's a funny business. I mean, as I said before, when you're working on the plates or working on the images from memory, you're trying to place yourself in here, you know. And in a funny way, when you're here, you place yourself back into the work, you know. So it's as if they're both operating on some level at the same time. The next morning, I begin the day triptych. I use a lighter blue ink, the same as was used in the inset of the night image. And then I open up the surface with long streaks of turpentine wash. I use the roller again to pick up and lay down ink. The roller offsets the linear pattern and adds a slightly darker color as well. It's sort of funny, you know, you have pictures of me working, and to the person looking at these pictures, you sort of wonder, well, what's going on in his head? What's he looking at? And in fact, you're working in a kind of daydream, really, a sense of reverie. And in a way, if you could say what you were doing at the time you were doing it, you'd be verbally repeating to yourself, sunflower, sunflower, island, island, cloud. And it would be it's as if you are becoming, for that moment, one with both the material, with the plate, with the landscape. You are out of time. You are not in real time. Okay, here we go. That shape is big enough. Here the yellow roller has the opposite effect of the black roller. It'll lay down ink only where I've cleared away the surface. It'll also pick up some of the image from where it was drawn and offset it elsewhere. No matter how many images I make, I'm never entirely in control, nor do I want to be. When it comes off the press, there's always that excitement of discovering a section that prints slightly differently than you had imagined it would. But for every successful image, there are many that have to be simply thrown away, and that's part of the whole process as well. Well, so this is what they look like together. It's strange to see them together for the first time like this. On the whole, though, I think that there's a lot there. Some things really surprised me. It came out just beautifully. There's certain sections, like this section, is really very exciting to me, and even this is much better than I thought it was going to be. Of course, they won't have this white border between them. When they're actually installed, there'll be just a slight, like a 1/4 of an inch grout between them, so they'll fit much more like one piece. I'm going to have to give them some time and sit and look at them a lot, and maybe attack the whole problem once again when I'm a little fresher to it. Try other possibilities, but on the whole, I feel good about it. I did go back to work again on these images. I worked on at least 5 new pairs, reducing the size of the inset, changing the quality of the relationship between the day image and the night image, and finally came up with, I think, the last set, which was the most successful, and the one which ultimately is the commission.